session and things, but I figure we might as well go ahead and get started. So thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Ryan Oelkers. I like to say I'm a 19th year undergraduate student, or starting on my 19th year. That joke never gets a laugh, but I keep saying until this. But today what I'd like to talk about, what we'd all like to talk about, are some career pathways for students who are currently in STEM fields, astronomy in particular, because we're talking about we're at a Rubin community workshop, but sort of an understanding of how someone with that type of degree can sort of get to a various position that could be related to astronomy in some way. So we've assembled sort of a crack team of a panel here that is a variety of backgrounds, variety of current roles and positions that I think will be very useful, particularly for the students to talk to see how they could possibly enter the same shoes as that person in the future, and also understand that not everyone has sort of this nice linear path to their position. So I won't take up much of the time, and I'll leave that for the panel. First thing we'll do is we'll have some introductions from the panel. Everyone will be able to introduce themselves, talk about their past experiences and things, and then we'll mainly open it up for discussion. I have some questions that I've developed myself, but I will wait for people in the audience to bring that up. If you're online, you can either raise your hand on the Zoom, and I will look at that once I sit down, or you can also put the question in the Slack channel for this breakout session, okay? Two quick introductions, just to remember, primarily about the code of conduct and things. We're going to have hopefully a very healthy discussion, very lively discussion. Just be sure that you treat everyone with respect. These are everyone's personal experiences, their opinions and things, so please show them respect as they're talking about their different pathways and things. If anything comes up, feel free to use these links or let us know. I'll also try to moderate these types of things, but I doubt anything like that will happen here. And then, of course, those of you on Zoom, if you could please keep yourself muted, that would be wonderful. If you want to ask a question, please raise your hand, and I will certainly try to call on you in the next opportunity to do that. And I'll also make sure to ask for questions and things. Okay? So I don't remember exactly what the order, if people are sitting in the order of their slides. So I'm going to put up a slide, and then that person hopefully can begin. So you go.
That will be me. Hi, everyone, and thank you for being here, and thank you, Ryan, for the invite. My name is Igor Andreoni. I'm Italian, as you can maybe tell from the accent. And I've done my bachelor, my master degree at the University of Milan. Then I got a PhD at Swinburne University of Technology in Melbourne, Australia. I did a 3-year postdoc at Caltech on the West Coast, so just south of here. And then I took on a fellowship at the University of Maryland and NASA Goddard, kind of a bridge position. And like in a month, I'm starting a new job. I'm starting a job as an assistant professor at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So yeah, I do transit astronomy. Feel free to talk to me about career, about science, anything you like reading.
Great. Thank you, Igor. Yeah, yes.
Okay, hi, I'm Stephanie Dippa. I am on the Rubin Observatory staff on the Education and Public Outreach team. My position is Astronomy Content Strategist, which if you remember anything, just remember social media for the observatory. That's what I do. I do have a PhD in physics. I got my PhD at the University of Michigan studying the outer solar system using the dark energy survey. And after I graduated from grad school, I kind of pivoted into more of a science communication route. I did a summer fellowship as a AAAS Mass Media Fellow. That's the American Association for the Advancement of Science, where I worked as a scientist turned journalist in a newsroom, which taught me that I don't want to be a news journalist. So here I am. And then after that, I spent some time searching for my next thing. I was unemployed because we're all about branding here. And then I joined Rubin as the content strategist. And so I guess my interesting fact, I had 2 existential crises in grad school. The first one was I went to grad school for high energy physics, decided I didn't like high energy physics, and pivoted to what had always been my love of astronomy. But then shortly after that, I realized that I didn't actually like research. And here I was in a 6-year grad school position for research. So that was my second crisis. And then I discovered science communication and went full on into that. And so my lesson from all of that is to just try things and follow your interests and don't be afraid to switch things up if you're feeling like you need to change. That's me.
Melissa.
Hello, my name is Melissa Graham. I started with Rubin Observatory in 2016 as a data management science analyst. So working with the data management team to make sure all the data products that they're going to make are the things that scientists need in order to go off and write their papers. For the last couple of years, I've been the lead community scientist doing pretty much the same thing, actually, making sure people can use the data products, and then we make all the documentation, tutorials, run a lot of live events like the workshop, and do issue resolution. So when you post to the community forum, this thing doesn't seem like it's working, or I don't know how to do this, it's my team that sees your question and provides you the answer and helps you to do science. So I sort of started with a PhD in physics and astronomy in 2010. I had done a bit of undergrad research before that and worked as like a lab tech. So then I was a grad student, a couple of postdocs before moving into a professional research staff scientist role at the University of Washington. For my science life, I'm an observational astrophysicist. I'm from Canada. I study type 1a supernovae. That's the explosions of carbon oxygen like dwarf stars. And I also like cookies and cats and science fiction, and I like them all at the same time. So I would talk to you about any of those things as well. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Melissa. Louise.
So my name is Louise Edwards. I'm a associate professor at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is an undergraduate career institution right down the street, 3 hours away. My PhD is in physics as well. I'm also from Canada, although now very much American because I'm starting at the NSF, National Science Foundation, for rotation later this month. I have had a long path, which lots of different things. Some of the highlights are doing a couple of postdocs, doing visiting assistant professor, a bunch of different places, and finally I am now a professor. We were asked an interesting fact, maybe some stumbling block. In my last year of my PhD, I remember I applied to like a lot of jobs, like over 30, and I got none. And the next year I applied again, and I don't remember hearing too much. And I remember telling my advisor at the time that I was going to maybe like go into education, which I also like not as a secondary thing, but like maybe now it's time to switch gears to education. And that weekend, an email that I got, postdoc at Caltech, which I took and was amazing. So my lesson is just keep applying.
Hi everybody, I'm Luca Rizzi. I'm the second Italian in the group, apparently. Yes, I'm also from Italy. I went to school in the University of Padova in Italy. I did all my schooling over there all the way up to PhD. And at that point, I realized that so you can convert that internationally. So that was great. And I came to the US. My first job was at the University of Hawaii. And I did a postdoc over there that was going towards a traditional academic career. But I didn't really like it. I did everything I could to change quickly, and the first thing I did was to apply for a job at all the telescopes on here. It took me a couple of years, and eventually I got a job at a small one, and then I eventually ended up working for 10 years at the Keck Observatory as a support astronomer. By that time, I was getting a little tired of doing the same thing. I wanted a challenge and still staying in the field. So I asked myself, what is the hardest thing I can do for what I'm doing while still being an astronomer? And I ended up being a program director at the National Science Foundation. So I became a federal officer. In the meantime, before that happened, maybe there's time later, I went through a phase in which I applied for probably 5 or 6 different jobs, which I got and turned down. And the reason was my mental health wasn't very good at the time. And I just had to recognize it, tell everybody. They were very supportive. And then after I recovered, I could go back into the job search. So one lesson is it happens. There's nothing wrong. Yeah, that's the excuse. And what happens? So
Thank you.
Funny because I was told my entire life, my last name is Peluso, that I was mostly Italian. So I'm in the Italian corner here. It turns out through the DNA things that we can do now that that's not entirely true. I am Italian, but also Irish and a bunch of other things too. So I'm gonna start off just kind of telling you like kind of how I got to sitting in this chair today, and then I'll tell you what I'm working on now. I had a very non-traditional path to be where I'm at right now. Whenever I was in high school, I didn't care about science. I didn't care about astronomy. I was a musician. I still am. I learned how to write songs, and then when I went to college, right out of high school, I was told you got to go to college. I was like, yeah, okay, fine. And then, but all I really wanted to do was just play in bands and go on tour and stuff, right? And I did that for some time. I worked in the music industry for some time. The last job I had, full-time job in the music industry, I worked for Island Def Jam Records in New York City. Funny story, I once ate Kanye West popcorn at his CD release party, and he wasn't very happy about that. If you want to know more about that story, I'll tell you later. So when I was in my late 20s, I started watching some science documentaries about astronomy. I got really interested in, oh, this is pretty cool, like astronomy. Like I was always a Star Wars fan, and it's like I thought space was cool, but I didn't really know anything about being an astronomer. And then I like a lot of people who became an astronomer, completely changed the path of my life after I watched Carl Sagan's Cosmos. I watched it on a Netflix. It was on Netflix on my Nintendo Wii at the time. When you used to be able to watch Netflix on Nintendo Wii. And then I decided to go back to school. That was 10 years ago. Okay, and I got my bachelor's of science in planetary science, and then decided to go into teaching. So I got my master's of science education. Taught high school physics at public schools here in the Bay Area for some time. And then through a very serendipitous meeting, when I gave up on my idea of going to get my PhD because I was old and married and didn't want to move around the country, I met this semi-retired astrophysicist who said, "Oh, you can get a PhD with this university I do research with in Australia." And I was like, "What? Australia? No," but that's what I ended up doing. I didn't have to go there. I did get to go there, which was nice. But I just finished my PhD this past year in astronomy astrophysics, and it was a multidisciplinary PhD in exoplanet research and astronomy education. And now I am the Director of Strategic Engagement for the LSST Discovery Alliance, and I'm working on finding ways to engage the scientific community and different members we have to help maximize how we can do science, doing philanthropic initiatives to raise money for some innovative programs that we have. And I get to do some research too, so I'm still trying to carry on some of the research I did in my PhD. And I still am a singer-songwriter, and I still do music. If you want to know my Spotify and Apple Music, talk to me after.
Thank you. Colin.
Well, okay, hi. I'm Colin Ryan Chandler, and I'm a postdoc at the University of Washington and the DRAC Institute, so I have a lot of institutions. And I'm a project scientist for the LSST Interdisciplinary Network for Collaboration and Computing, LINC framework. I got it out twice in one day. Let's talk. So, yeah, I also didn't have a traditional path. I had let's call it a subpar coming out experience when I was a teenager and had to get into the workforce as fast as possible. So I was in university at the time, and I took 2 separate gap decades. Yeah, they were both warranted. And I came back. I owned an IT business. That's what I got into. I was always a computer nerd. And I wanted to get back to school, and there was an opportunity to do that. And I changed my major from Japanese to astrophysics, and it took a while longer because there wasn't a lot of math in Japanese before. But then I got there, and I did my PhD in Northern Arizona University. And then I applied for postdocs. And so one thing it's just for people thinking about career paths, it's a bit different. Is that mine is funded through a private gift through the Schmidt Sciences That's what we're supposed to say now. It's changed a few times. So it's like a formal tech person who's running this project, and so it's kind of exciting to be in a different angle. So yeah, that's my story, and I was born and raised here, and I lived in Arizona, and now I'm in Seattle.
Thank you, Colin. It's fine.
Hi everyone, I'm Samaya. So I did my bachelor degree back in my homeland, Iran, and then I came to the US to do my PhD, and then after that I did a postdoc at University of Delaware, and then I got the LSSD College Fellowship, and I'm doing that at Rutgers right now. So I wanted to be an astronomer since age 8, and it's my grade. And I think one of the most difficult part of my path was when I had my first child. The last year of my PhD was very challenging, and then I had my second child during my postdoc. It was easier because like there's more benefits for postdoc than graduate students. And yeah, that's
He's fine. Okay, thank you, panel members. So I will sit down now and we'll start sort of an open discussion. We do have a question already online, so maybe I'll ask that first and anyone can kind of take it. And then I have some questions if no one else in the crowd has questions, but please think of things. So the first one I found was, what are some things you had to unlearn while in your career? Yeah, and anyone can take it.
One word, perfection.
Do you want to elaborate or keep it at
You
one
want me
word?
to elaborate? It's just when they say you have to learn when good is good enough. Before being able to do that, it took me like 2 years to complete a paper, and in general to like wrap a project up. But at some point, when you realize that the result is good, it is quality, you can really put it to the finishing line without necessarily getting lost on all the perfectionisms. That radically changed my productivity and also allowed me more time to think, do more projects, do more things. I became, I guess, a happier researcher.
Great. Anyone else want to?
I mean, I had to change some habits, like in undergraduate, grad school, for a very long time. You kind of, I mean, in undergrad, you have to spend your weekends and your nights studying because you have tests, right? You kind of have to do that to survive. It sort of feels like that for a really long time, like for an unsustainable number of years going forward. And I think that was a really big change in me was when I was able to recalibrate a little bit and change some habits and make sure I had some time for like rest and relaxation and other types of things. For me, the thing that did it was I had kids and I had to, but I would definitely advocate for people trying to figure out ways earlier on than that to do that for themselves.
Okay. Other questions in the room? Yeah, Dan.
I think mine's for Dan and Colin. I saw that both of you applied to your PhDs kind of when you're older, and I'm feeling pretty burnt out after my master's, and I'm feeling like that's probably going to be me too. How did you deal with getting like the references or like applying, probably being like out of the game that long?
Sure. I mean, I think mine is even less traditional, and then I went back to undergrad at 37. So like I did once I did go back because I had 2 previous experiences with taking gap decade. They did count automotive classes towards my astrophysics degree, by the way. I didn't ask for it, it was automatic. But I had these gaps, so I just decided if I had the gap, another one, maybe it would be like more decades. So I decided to roll right in. And that worked well for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, so for me, I had kind of given up on the idea of getting my PhD just because, as I said, I didn't really want to move around the country, all these other different things, and also feeling kind of like I maybe wouldn't fit in at a normal graduate school where I didn't have the credentials or the background, to be attracted to a university. And, I think to answer your question, but then also to piggyback on the last question, is to not compare yourself to other people, right? You have to make like your own path. And if you're feeling burnout, then you should definitely take a break and like follow your gut and passions and do something fun, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, we have this traditional path. I think, oh, you go to high school, you got to go to college, you got to go to graduate school, you got to do your postdoc. Like, there's these things, and maybe that's good for people. And some people, I'm not saying that shouldn't be what you, that I'm not saying that can't be what you do, right? But it doesn't have to be what you do, right? And then as far as like, how did you figure out the applications and references and all that stuff? I guess the easiest way to answer is I just did, but I just did because I didn't have the background that a lot of people have, and I just kind of had to figure it out because it was something I wanted and there was an opportunity there, and because of my untraditional background, I was able to create a project for my PhD that was very different, and that made me very attractive to the university where I did that, because I was able to do things because of my background and various things that I've done that other people didn't really have the background experience to do. So everyone's uniqueness, I think, is special, and you should capitalize on that.
Just to tack on to returning student is a concept in undergrad that didn't exist for me in grad school. And I was surprised to see some of the school's median age for grad students was like mid-30s. So it wasn't quite the separation that I thought.
There's also an option to, and I'm not saying this is the right option for you, but there is an option out there to apply for PhD programs and grad school or whatever. And then if you get in, ask for a deferral. That's very common. And start the year later and give yourself a room to breathe. And if you're thinking more like 4 or 5 years later or whatever, also with like, suggest like the relationships that you've been like building now, if it makes sense in your situation to have open communication with those mentors. For me, I usually want to see my students succeed in what's best for them. So if I know that, they're going to be applying in 2, 3 years or whatever for PhD program, I have that in my head. I can like write my letter now while it's fresh. That's another.
Let's say just one last thing. Also, like, consider, potentially schools outside of the U.S. too. Like I don't think to be honest, I don't think I would have got into grad school in the U.S. for astrophysics. I think most schools, the majority of schools, would say no, and it's just been a closed door for me. But other schools outside of the country have some more flexible requirements and look for people with more traditional backgrounds in some ways. And the fact that I got to do my PhD with the University in Australia helped open so many doors and helped me to network and learn from so many people, and made me have the ability to create this amazing project. And I got to go to Australia, and that was pretty cool too. So there's benefits to broadening your horizons of where you could go do your PhD if you choose to do a PhD, but you don't have to do a PhD. I appreciate that.
Okay, I'm going to bounce back and forth between online and in the room. So another online question was, for those of you who did a master's program instead of directly applying to a PhD, how did you end up making that decision to apply for a master's first? Anyone?
Well, easy answer. When I went to college, master was an option. You just have to go 5 years program period. So it was 5 years with that PhD. So no, it doesn't apply to me.
Well, in my case, it's kind of the natural way in Italy. Like, you can't do a PhD if you don't have a master. But regardless, like the the bachelor degree is not as valuable as the master degree. So almost nobody, like a small fraction of people just stop at the bachelor, they do the master. And then later realize, oh, I didn't really have to do that, but I figured it out like well into my PhD.
I did an optional one. I chose to do it because I wasn't ready to sign on for a very long period of time. Like I really liked astronomy, but I mean, when I was 21 or whatever, 6 years sounded like a really long time. So I chose specifically to do the master's to try it out for a couple of years.
Any others?
I got a master's of science education because I decided I wanted to be a public school teacher, and there was a university that had a 1-year program to get your single subject teaching credential in California and get your master's degree. And I was like, well, I might as well get the master's degree with it. Very easy.
Okay, we can take a question in the room now. In the yellow, yeah.
My question is for Luis and anyone else who applied for a lot of positions, faced a lot of rejections, and eventually, sort of like as a buzzer beater, found something. Did you, when that job finally came in, had you done anything differently to strengthen your application between your first rejections and then, or was it really a matter of just keep trying and hope for the best and eventually like something will come through, it's just a matter of rates?
That's a good question. I feel like all the way up until my final position, or like the position I am right now, I kind of like was very open to taking whatever kind of came my way. I didn't mention that like my path is very long and it was a obliged version that I put on the slide there, but at one point in between at the end of my PhD, right when I was applying the first time to all these jobs, my father was very sick and I went back home to Victoria, where I met most of the first time, and was like a visiting grad student, like just took up a desk at this place where I had gone to undergrad and I knew a lot of people and I attended all the events like I was actually there, like all the coffee and donuts and everything like that. And it was a hallway conversation with Dave Patton, like somebody else who was visiting, where I was just like saying, oh, I just applied to all these jobs, I didn't get anything. And he was like, you know what, I'll hire you for, I can hire you for 8 months if you come across the country with me. And so I did that and I made very little money. So I'm not saying it's the right choice for everybody, but having that little like extra piece then gave me like a way to apply again the next year.
Mhm.
And it was like at the end, it was Dave who was talking about where I was like, couldn't tell him I was going to switch stuff, you know, and then that weekend this thing happened. So it's very much like, yeah, that's kind of a coincidence, but also if I hadn't have just like completely engaged in all the possible activities at UVic when I was visiting there, that wouldn't happen.
I can also speak to my experience, at least in the science communication sphere. So when I was applying my unemployment period, so I was very severely burnt out from grad school, but I was like, well, I have to get a job. Like I can't just not have a job. So I was applying to all kinds of stuff, but I was severely burnt out, did not have the energy to really like dedicate to the job search. But there were a number of positions that were coming up and I was applying, kept getting rejected, which as a very like high achieving like student, the type that, you know, goes to grad school and all that kind of stuff. Like I am that. The rejection was hard. And so get comfy with it. You will probably face it at some point in your life. It's okay. It's usually not you. But what I will say is there was a combination of factors that led to me getting this position. And I'll preface this by saying if I had not gotten this position, I would have pivoted career path. So this is like kind of the final buzzer beater kind of position that you were mentioning. If I had not gotten this science communication job with Ruben, I would not be in science communication because I was like, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep banging my head against the wall and not getting anything. But what I did, as I knew the hiring manager. So what I will say is that networking is a big, big, big thing in any field. But the more people you can talk to and meet and just introduce yourself to, the better. Because the more you can like kind of put out there what you're looking for, maybe someone you come across will think of you when they see a position that kind of matches what you're looking for. And so that was the first thing. The second thing I did, and I tell everybody to do this now when you are trying to look for a job, I contracted somebody to critique my resume and to tell me what was wrong with it and to help me fix it. And so my resume before this position, I wanted this job so bad. I was like, this is the job. Like, this is the, if I don't get this, I'm done. Like, I can't, I am perfect for this job. I want it so bad. And so I paid somebody to look at my resume, paid somebody to read my cover letter and tell me what was wrong with it so that I could fix it. And if you are at a university or college, like check in with your career center or your academic advisors and see if there is somebody at your school who can help you with this, because it was a game changer. Like it was not a lot of major changes. It was very minor things, but it made a huge difference to how my resume presented and read. And so I tell everybody to do this now. Like if you are on the job hunt, pay somebody. It doesn't cost very much, and if you have access to a career center, like, it's probably free. It's probably a service that they offer for you. But have somebody look at your resume and help you make it better.
Thank you. Okay. Another online question was, for those of you who entered a PhD program later or decided to have kids while you were in graduate school, how did you make things work considering the low salaries available when you're a graduate student, particularly in astronomy or physics?
So regarding the second question, so it was so for my case, because my husband was working in the industry, it wasn't like that hard for us. But it's always great to look up the benefits that universities provide for grad students. It is big grad students, but postdocs have more benefits. At that time, I didn't know that I can be looking for that I can actually expect some benefits, some help from university. I didn't really know that. And as part of like the LCC fellowship, I have this community project in which I have proposed to collect information from institutions on what benefits they provide for grad students who are becoming parents or they want to become parents. So I would recommend to look up what the university would provide. If they don't find anything, I would still recommend that they ask their department chair or like the Office of Graduate Life, something like that that university would have, and ask what sort of benefits they would provide. Sometimes they have like some daycare options, some sort of like different benefits.
That was a real struggle for me in deciding to go to graduate school. Even when I went back to school for my undergrad in my early 30s, it was terrifying to think about like not being able to make money and going back to school full time. I had to drive for Uber and Lyft. I was a waiter. I did any kind of job in addition to going to school full time just to like pay the bills and get by. And that was really challenging. And then when I decided to go get my PhD, and my wife was like, "Really? How are we going to afford this?" It was another concern, and that was one of the concerns about not wanting to go into a PhD later in life in America because of the low stipends that you can have for that. And I think how I would answer this simply is being creative and networking. So as I mentioned, I had gone to this university in Australia, University of Southern Queensland. I was able to do most of this remotely. So they, that's why I said in the beginning, like, oh, PhD in Australia, like online, what, are you kidding? Like, that doesn't exist. Pre-COVID, you'd be like, you don't do that. post-COVID, we're like, oh yeah, you can do that, right? It's not that crazy of an idea. But I did get a stipend through them. But because of networking and just being like creative, I was also able to get a joint appointment at the SETI Institute. And I was paid through grants through a project that I built through them, as well as my stipend that I had through USQ. And that made things okay. I was making more money than an average, definitely a lot more money than an average student would make in grad school, and that made things workable. So you got to be creative, you got to network, think outside the box, and maybe that can help.
Okay, we'll take another question in the room. So from the people with their hands up, we're gonna go Elena, and then in the back there, and then this way. So Elena, go ahead.
So I have a kind of similar one to the one you just had, not salary based, but traveling based. How do you cope? How do you compromise with following the best opportunities across the country, across continents, with maybe later in life wanting the stability, maybe with a family, and then very quickly a specific one to look at. I'm Italian, fine. And how do you end up working at NSF as an international, not an American? Did you get an American citizenship? Did you follow like what kind of path?
Like that's the second one, very quick. Yes, you have to. It kind of depends on at which level you want to work. You can be a temporary hire, and in that case, it's still open to a certain extent to let's see, up to my level, you have to have at least a citizenship higher than where I am right now. You need to have security clearance, which you don't have. That requires citizenship in most cases, which I will have to. So I'm where I am, and I'm going. Yeah, generally, it is required. It's very special. There are many other jobs in similar fields, and you can don't require.
I can comment on like regarding the stability, like traveling around, like work-life balance, especially like when I had kids. I think, especially in the US and in our field, it's more doable because like wherever you are, there are a lot of institutions that are close to you. You just like drive up to different institutions, meet a lot of new people. So that's very doable and very useful. You have a lot of connections that way. And then there are also some resources that provide some grants for people with children who want to travel, like LCC, Discovery Alliance has some resources, AA so always like looking up for resources, things that can help, especially with if there's like a disability or there's like you have family members who really take with you or have to care at home.
I didn't have my children until after I had a permanent position. But when they were really young, yeah, I just took them everywhere. Then I would have like my mom or my cousin or somebody come along to help with daycare during the sticky times. But these days, a lot of conferences are offering childcare.
Yeah, no, I was thinking more about and the postdocs every 2 years having to move to a different institution, different place.
People do it though.
And some positions are more flexible. That was my problem. Like I didn't want to do things with my kids, and for this fellowship, I negotiated, and they were okay that I don't go in like every day. So I did like 2 days a week, and it was like, I mean, it depends on the position. Like especially after COVID, a lot of positions are more flexible, like having more. And I especially looked for places that were closer to me when I was looking for a postdoc, so that I wouldn't have to like move across the country. Yeah, but that is really an issue because postdocs are like 2 or 3 years and you have to change because like going across the country every time.
Also, I remember when I was a lot, like, 20 years ago or whatever, thinking like, oh, how am I gonna have kids before I'm 30 or whatever? I had my kids at So there's not necessarily a rush.
Okay, great. We have another online question. We'll come back to the room. So for those of you who basically took the very traditional path, so, bachelor's, master's, PhD, postdoc, so on, knowing what you know now, would you still go through that direct route, or do you think that there was some value you could have missed or could have gotten by taking a leap here or doing something else? Like when you were deciding to continue into your PhD, was there another path you could have taken in some alternate universe you're now a rock star or something?
I think if I wanted to do it again, I would have taken a short break right after my PhD, because I at that time I thought I really needed it, but then I got the position, like the offer for the next position was like starting right away, and I was like, okay, if I don't start it, then maybe I won't find something like this the next year or like a few months later. So I took it, but I still feel like I need that short break. Just to just to rethink and like make sure I'm doing okay and like I'm on the right track. So if you think that you might need it at some time, don't be afraid to take it. Just think about it. Sometimes even a few days or a few weeks.
I think making choices is hard, not just because it's hard to do what to decide to do, but because you are massive FOMO, the fear of missing out. And the word is pretty beautiful. There are so many things you can do that you can enjoy. I wish I was a musician or another life, a mountaineer, or, and at some point in life you have to make a choice, but I think it's okay. So there is not the right path. So sorry, not to contradict you, just say it, that you mentioned the right path. There is not the right path. It's your own path. Like in my specific case, I prefer to just do one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. A bit because it was culturally the way it was most accepted where I grew up, to be fair. Whoever kind of went away from the standard path was kind of frowned upon. Hopefully things have changed, and I think here in the US are definitely different. But I've seen people taking different paths even for a short time, even afterwards. I know of professors who just left academia for a few years, keeping the position on hold, founded a company, became rich, sold the company, or vice versa. Anyway, and then go back to it. So the hope is that at some point in life, you can still do a career change or maybe get stable enough to just nurture the other passions you have. That's kind of my personal hope.
Okay, so we'll go back into the room. So I think there was a question. Yes.
Hi, yeah. So I have a question regarding how we can best take advantage of our role as early career researchers, and also kind of what the top media platforms and professional platforms to market ourselves. So I guess the best question is, do you have any advice on how we should market ourselves?
To academia? What do you like generally outside of academia?
I think anything you want to share. I'm sure some people want to choose an academic route. I'm sure other people want a different route.
Yeah, I think the first thing to consider when you are thinking about trying to market yourself is who are you marketing yourself to? And that will kind of guide how you structure what you're putting together. So if you are trying to find a job in industry, probably making a LinkedIn profile is a good way to go. If you are trying to market yourself to a more academic track, you should probably have a website with links to all of your work and the things that you've done up until this point. If you are, I don't know, trying to market yourself as like an authority on science, speaking to the public, like make sure you have a website and a spot that shows off that work. And so my advice would be think about who is it that you're trying to market yourself to, and then there are different avenues for doing that, depending on who you're trying to reach with that.
I think that's a good point, and I just want to share a story. There's someone in my department who's very active on TikTok, and has amassed, a large following, gets tens of millions of views. And we were having a conversation in the department that, when you are applying for funding or applying for positions, you can kind of put the argument that you have public interest in the work that you do. And so I see that working well for people looking for roles in academia and non-academic realms as well. So I think there's a lot to take advantage of.
Yeah. So probably of the generation who were before these video doing things, but at the same time, marketing yourself has always been important. And I want to go back to maybe other questions we were similar. I think if I go back to every single job I had, none of them were the results of a completely open search. None of them. I don't think I successfully applied to a job where nobody knew who I was, and I just went into my resume and my accomplishment. It just never happened. There was always some connection of some kind, and it was sometimes strong, sometimes weaker, but that was always the factor. And that connection could have been being a market yourself as an expert in something. So being up, go to meetings, conferences, and market yourself. Have an expert in that. But always knowing somebody. So that was the way of marketing. And I'm not saying you're bypass the process. It's just that there's so many excellent candidates every single time that really hiring managers are struggling to find the one tiny thing that will make a difference. And sometimes it's just a colleague saying, "Hey, have you heard of this person here?" I think I believe every single time this is what happened to me, five or six times. The one time I applied for a completely open position in a different field, I didn't even get a phone call. So that's my experience. I don't know how much it matches others. But that was my market. Get to know people.
Yeah, I think your digital profiles are obviously needed and important, right? But we also have to consider that there's all these filters, like when you apply to a job, that even if you're the perfect candidate and you have the best resume, maybe the AI is not going to show your resume to the hiring managers. And that's a real concern today, right? But in addition, and adding to what Luca was saying, like when you go there in person, you never know like who you're going to meet, you're going to talk to. When I was mentioning earlier about this dilemma of finding funding to survive while doing graduate school, the only reason why I was able to get funded partially by SETI Institute is because at the beginning of the PhD, I got this email from the San Francisco Amateur Astronomers Association, and it was about this talk that a senior planetary astronomer from the SETI Institute was going to give about finding the next pale blue dot. And I was really excited about this because Carl Sagan fan, and one of my supervisors at the PhD program said, well, you should find some other supervisors maybe in the area, since you're going to be doing this PhD program remotely from the Bay Area. And they allow you to do this. Again, this flexibility at this university that you can't get out of university. I have this really interesting project that I had. And he said, go and talk to him and ask him to be in on your supervisor account. I was like, are you kidding? Like, I'm not going to go there and ask him. He's like, no, go do it. I was like, okay, I'll go do it. So I went there and I listened to his talk, and it was really interesting. And on the side of his talk, there was this telescope. And he said, oh, I co-founded this telescope. It's called a unistellar telescope. It's like a new type of digital smart telescope that's never existed before. And and we're going to go look at this afterwards. I had never heard of it before. And that's where I went up to him and said, will you be on my PhD supervisory group? I literally just cold asked him there. And he was interested because I wanted to combine science with astronomy education. And he wanted someone to help build this education thing for this new type of telescope that they were building that was going to change how we do citizen science. And then it turned out that the backbone of my PhD was this unistellar citizen science network, and it helped fund me to actually do my PhD. So if I wouldn't have gone out and talked to him, to say hi, and I didn't have that initiative to do that, that would have never happened. And just don't be afraid to talk to people. Email somebody, right? Go and talk to them in person, and just network. Like the human interaction, we're humans. We need to have this personal reaction with people, and you never know what's going to come out of things when you just talk to people.
Can I add a quick note of concern about this?
Sure.
So I 100% agree with everything you have said about marketing yourself and the importance of networking. It's been acknowledged, I think, especially during and after COVID, that this kind of introduces a bit of a problem in that problem of inclusion, of equity, diversity, inclusion, because not everyone can travel. Not all institution can fund you, go have a tour of all the best university in the world to just show off and talk to people. And this also penalizes somehow also maybe the introverts, people with a different type of, say, with a personality maybe that makes it difficult for them to interact. These are real barriers. I think there is a concrete effort to go a little bit as much as possible beyond them with the hybrid meetings, but there are ways. So I guess my call is, but keep an eye out for, like, try to avoid this problem when you will be in the position of organizing, but truly make the most of your being here, like literally here, or your next trip. And there are ways. The digital world truly offers amazing opportunities, and emails. People tend to read emails, Slack, do connect, try to go beyond that bit of being afraid of maybe the reverence toward the big professors. Just do it. They're just people in the end. So it's fine.
I just would add one thing, which is that you have, for marketing yourself, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of people are just going to ADS, like search your name, or Google your name, Google Scholar your name. So if you have any opportunity to present at a conference, virtual even, anything that puts a mark on there, research notes, whatever, like those definitely set people apart. I chose to be first author of a paper in my undergrad instead of spending all my time focusing on the physics GRE. It was definitely the right call. Yeah, it's a different kind of marketing, but it matters a lot. I would argue.
Okay, we can take more
I think
questions.
you had like a comment on the same topic.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to add on to that. I think the tension that I know some folks have felt is not just the introverts and stuff, but there's very real carbon constraints. And like if you be equitably, allocated sort of our carbon budget across every human, it would burn out with a single transatlantic round trip flight. And that's for everything. That's food, shelter, eating, So I think there's also an additional element of a changing landscape of the field. And where is that tension in terms of our own personal promotion for networking in person? There is something very real about that in-person networking versus like trying to actually implement a different way of doing science that's actually compatible with sort of climate boundaries. And I think that's something that is increasingly felt and something I'm personally struggling with. And I would also so I just wanted to share that it's not just sort of personality types, but it's something I think we all are going to or should be wrestling with.
Okay, so we're going to keep going down this way, and then we'll go back to the front. So yes.
Okay, so I'm 36 in my last year of PhD program. I have a 5-year-old son and a husband and a 3-body problem that's a whole bunch of other stuff. And the kind of uncertainty of doing a postdoc and having to move and not really knowing how long I'm going to have money for is something that I just can't really get over. So I'm trying to see if figure out how difficult it is to get a non-teaching permanent position right out of grad school if you don't have the background of a postdoc to put down. Like that's a lot of the times in the requirements for you have to have this in order to even apply. So how do I use all of the many years of different jobs that I've had and get over that? without sounding or without feeling like I'm, yeah.
Do you mean like no teaching?
I have never ever wanted to teach in my life. I have done it. And it's one of those things where I'm really good at it. I just don't want to do it. And so like, if I had to, fine. But like, I didn't spend, a decade or more of my life getting a PhD in astrophysics to go do something that I hate.
I mean, the biggest thing I'll say is let the hiring manager tell you no, don't tell them no in advance. So like, even if you don't check all the boxes of the requirements, apply anyway. Let them tell you no.
I'll say for the position I have now, I mean, usually like when you're a director of something like this, you've had a postdoc and then you've were at a university for some time. I went from PhD to director, right? And it's because of the various like experiences I had before I went back to school for astronomy. I've done all these other things, right? And I was I worked in the music industry. I did marketing. I did promotions. I did sales jobs. I was a teacher for a long time, right? And because of all these different things, it made me kind of a perfect fit for the different responsibilities of the job that you have now. So take pride in the stuff that you have done, and and just as they're saying up there is, don't let that stop you, and only let the people that say no as the people that will say no after you apply. So just go for it.
And just to quickly, is there a place, like what is the best place to even look for jobs like this? Because you have like the AAS register for postdocs and, super scientific technical jobs, but where do you go to find a science outreach education job list of stuff besides going directly to, LST or SETI?
Most of these kinds of jobs will appear on sites like LinkedIn or Indeed. And so when I was searching for my current position, I had a list of kind of like keywords that I would regularly search on these sites just to see what popped up. So like for me, I knew I wanted to stay in astronomy. I knew I wanted to do science communication. So my key like search phrase was astronomy communication. And then I would just browse through all the jobs that came up from that search and apply to any of them that were like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And so like figure out what those keywords are for like what you want to do. And then browse these kind of job aggregator sites. And then bonus, if you know someone who like even tangentially works kind of along those lines, like tell everyone that you're looking for a job and what you're looking for a job in. Because then that kind of expands the network, and maybe if they see something, they'll maybe think of you and pass it along to you. So, yeah.
So I have a question about, faculty positions in general. So first of all is, how do you find a faculty position? Is it mostly like word of mouth? Do you go on like websites like Indeed or something? How do you find out about these positions? And another question is, well, what we've all heard about academia is that it's like really, really difficult to actually get a job in academia, especially like a faculty tenure track position. But also, like, yes, it makes sense that there's not that many positions open for a faculty in astronomy as opposed to like software development and industry, right? But there's also less people applying for faculty positions. So like in reality, is it really that bad, or is it just like any other job where like, yeah, it's hard, but like you'll be fine? And I guess kind of adding on to that is, how much control do you have over where you want to work? Like, do you get to say like, okay, I want to stay in like the Northeast in like a big city, or is it more like you get what you get? If it's middle of nowhere, North Dakota, well, hope you like just plain, I think that's more, I don't know, but I've never been there. And then lastly, like, congratulations, you got an an interview for a faculty position in this awesome university that you really, really want. Well, obviously, there's also interviewing other people, and those people, well, not only do they have the same qualifications as you, but more than likely, they're working in the same exact like field. So you can't just pull the, well, you should hire me because I have all these qualifications and look how interesting my research is, because it's like, well, yeah, that's everybody. So at that point, you know, what is it that like, you know, universities look for in candidates that will kind of, you know, make you stand out, besides obviously like, okay, your research is good and it aligns with what the university is doing. Like, yes, you can get your own funding. Like you've shown that, like, you know, saying that that's like a given, you know, at that point, like, what is it that, you know, really makes you stand out?
I've just been through the travels, so I can answer to everything other than the last one, maybe because I've never been in a committee. I can tell you what they told me because I tried to stand out. Okay, let's see. It is pretty bad. Like there's no joke about it. It depends where you apply, especially R1 universities, so the ones where research is like a primary factor. It can be pretty harsh in that you may have more than 500 applications for one position. So that's what and everyone say apply for MIT, you have 600 people who think they're good enough to teach at MIT and become professor at MIT. So it's harsh competition regardless. But even if you have, you know, just another person instead of 500, you have the problem you said, yeah, maybe someone with your senior qualification, maybe coming from the same institution, from the same research group, and maybe you're a friend with them. And to me, it's happening all the time now because we're like a generation that is trying to move forward together. And, you know, just play it nice. I think in that case, it helps comparing notes with the other applicants if they're not stressed out about it. It made it actually so much better to just knowing that there is someone else kind of in your same situation. And then congratulate them if they get the job and you don't, still go out for a drink and then try to be happy. That's, you know, it makes life better. Where you find jobs, typically AAS job register is excellent for faculty jobs. In some cases, they do targeted hires, meaning the university decides to hire a specific person even without making a public call. But that's pretty rare. Was not my case. But like what happened in my case is that I was so tired from all the job applications, I decided, okay, now stop. I'm not going to apply anymore this year. And there was no more job coming up anytime soon that I was aware of. And then someone sent me an email saying, hey, just want to let you know, in case you're not already set with a university that you're applying for, we're putting out a job now that is so late, but you know, they almost not back, but just saying, would be really nice if you apply. And I would have totally missed it. And in the end, is the job I got. Was fantastic. So once again, getting your name out there, get, you know, a bit of a good reputation at the very least. It's something that helps. And finally, I think you mentioned about the regional search. I think at that point, probably you want to be a bit more open to different pathways, maybe similar to each other. Like if I'm thinking, I live near Washington, DC now. If I really wanted to stay there, there's University of Maryland, where I am now. There is George Washington University, so both like research focused. But if you're also open to do maybe more pure teaching, there are 2-3 other universities. You got to do also some more staff research. There is the National, what is it? The Naval Academy. Thank you. That one, Naval Academy. There is NASA. So at that point, maybe a bit of flexibility is very much in order. Did I cover all your questions?
Yes, it did. Thank you. Just one thing, kind of like adding on to that. So I guess other than like a typical faculty position at a university, what would be some other positions that involve like research? Yeah,
there are plenty. Like Alicia, if you want to answer to that.
Yeah, so if you're go the academic routes and the faculty routes, yes, you're spending probably 50% of your time is up to you, you do research, and the other 50% of your time is service. You're teaching, you're doing, sitting on committees, you're doing other things. Professional track, those kinds of mixed jobs do exist also. So professional side, you're 20%, like my position is 20% my own research, 80% service. Other people, it's 50-50. And that service can be different. It can be software development for Rubin or for other telescopes. You could be instrument scientist at an observatory where you're maintaining an instrument, helping users. So most jobs that you go into can or there are options for how your time is split. So yeah, so that's one example is my service happens to be very research heavy. It's all supporting research. So it ends up feeling like 100% of the time I'm doing research related things. But I didn't know about these jobs when I was a grad student. It's only sort of once you are working with people that you realize these jobs.
I also just want to say a lot of the training that you need to become a professor is super helpful for jobs that you maybe don't even know they exist, jobs that may not exist today, right? So like if you're going into grad school because you know you have to be a professor in the Boston area, I don't know if I would suggest doing that. But if you're going to the next step because you love it, like I just really want to do astronomy for another 5 years, then you're gonna, even if you don't get a postdoc or you do the postdoc and then you don't get a professorship, you're building up all these like skills that will be useful to lots of different like avenues.
Take another question.
Mine have all been answered at this point.
Thanks. And Joe.
Yeah, so for those of you that did take a gap year, were any of those gap years like a forced gap year through like a rejection? And if they were a forced gap year, what did you do or what can someone do during that time? Or gap decade?
Thank you. Mine was definitely forced too. I mean, I didn't have any choice. But it turns out there's computers and astronomy. And that turned out to be helpful. I mean, I love here. I'm definitely a nerd, 110%. So like going in that route was helpful for later. But I have also mentored students to do the post-bac thing. I mean, I think people are leaning away from maybe. I'm hearing less gap year or like a lot of people. I don't know. It's like they envision being on a beach somewhere, like or on a vacation. Students that I've mentored that have worked with me that they end up getting like NSF GRFE and stuff like that. They were able to focus on doing these things piecemeal instead of doing it all at once. Yeah, or Denise just went through this also wasn't optional, and managed to do research at the same time as like in the research group after she had graduated at the university, while also doing other things. And depending on if you're really lucky, you can also get paid. Like I've had students who have been able to get funded to be able to keep working or split with me and Lowell, for example, while they're in that postbac, building up their application, making fellowship applications. You can apply for GRFP if you want. So
Last. Okay, there was a question online before we'll go back to the room again. So any advice for grad school seeking postbac people on best practices for like cold emailing or I guess cold walking up to someone at a conference and networking? So I guess best networking practices if you have terrible people skills or something. You know, well, how would you go about cold emailing or just cold walking?
I would suggest do your homework first. Sometimes I receive a very long email about what these people did or may want to do and has nothing to do with what I do. and I reply because I'm polite, but I reply less willingly than someone coming and saying, I read your last paper and it was discussing this and that, and maybe ask a science question and then starts the networking. I think, there are more clever ways than saying, hey, I need something. Make especially professor with big egos, make them feel good about themselves first.
If you're awkward and find yourself presenting a poster, too, that's another way you will connect with people. Because they'll walk up to you. You don't have to like approach them. You'll have people coming up and
You can actually schedule meetings at your poster. That's a suggestion that I received from Shri Kulkarni at Caltech. Especially if you want a job from someone in particular, say for a postdoc, send a short email, polite, and ask them if they would be available during a coffee break to come to your poster. Go target it this way, 3-4 people per conference. You have more chances, I think, to land the job this way than maybe giving a talk at the AAS that lasts 3 minutes and you're talking to 100 people.
You could start by like, oh, I saw your talk or whatever last session and I had this question about it. So kind of as you're sitting and watching the sessions, like taking little notes for yourself or kind of like discussion questions or whatever you could start.
Yeah, in terms of cold emailing, again, do your homework, open with something that, connects directly to something that person does, that shows that you know something about them, you're reaching out for a reason. And then also be respectful of their time and don't write a whole long essay. Keep it short, succinct, but, feel free to ask for, a quick chat or like meet me at my poster or any of these kinds of things. But yeah, no one wants to open an email and read a whole long wall of text. So like keep it short.
And God, don't ask ChatGPT to report.
No.
I work on coma of comments, right? They've got like a cloud around them. I get some all the time, like, hey, I wanted to talk to you about this coma patient. I'm like, no, it's different kind of coma, but definitely. So your AI may be wrong. Yeah.
But this, we've heard this theme a lot about like the value of personal connections. So like, for example, a lot of you are probably working with like a science mentor right now, maybe even for the first time, like cultivate that connection. And you could ask that person who you now know personally, like, hey, I'm going to this conference. Do you know anybody who's at this conference, and get them to help you set up or use that as you're in, like, oh, by the way, I work with so-and-so.
Use your existing connections to make new connections. That is the best way to do it.
Okay, there's another online question. So I'll tweak it a little bit. So there was this mention where, if you say there's 5 qualifications for a job, if you meet 3 of them, you should just apply. I would probably say if you meet 0 from one of them, you should just apply. But kind of along those lines, if it has a minimum qualification for something like a master's, but you have job experience in your post-baccalaureate, do you think that it is worthwhile applying, or what is sort of the division you find when you're applying for your own jobs, whether or not you think even if you're not fully qualified, you could get the job? Or is there what's the best way to kind of figure that out when you're looking at job applications?
You should just apply because it's so individual. Like even just take like academia and 4-year institutions like mine or whatever, some of them they'll put in the job ad very strict constraints that like cannot be changed. But sometimes they'll put them in there and actually we really like this candidate, and the dean can change their mind, or just the hiring committee can change their mind. And there's kind of no way for you to know as the applicant. So I would just say apply.
Yeah, I mean, the hiring committees put together their, best guess at what they think this job will require. But if the right candidate comes around, like there's a lot of flexibility that can be worked into the job description for the right person. Like if you really do, if you want that job, just apply. Like again, as I said before, make them be the ones to tell you no. Don't count yourself out before you even start. And so if you think that you are a good fit for the job, like there's a filtering section. If you don't make it through that, then okay, like try again next time. But let them be the ones to tell you no.
Okay, so we're coming in our last 10 minutes. So are there any other questions in the room? Yeah.
I'm coming up my last year of PhD, and I'm looking to try to apply for postdocs and everything. And so I saw a lot of times where you do a postdoc and then you turn into a fellowship or turn into another postdoc. Like a lot of times these first postdocs or next postdocs are temporary, and a lot of times you got to be focusing on where's your next postdoc, what's your next thing. And coming from someone that is starting to apply for postdocs now and going to at another postdoc that only lasts like a couple of years, and then you're applying for another one. How much time does it take? What kind of balance do you need to have as far as focusing on research versus looking for your next, it's, bad to say, but like, where's your next job? Where's your next thing you need to do? Because you kind of have to be focusing on, because a lot of times these postdocs can feel so short, even compared to like your 5-year PhD.
Takes a lot of time.
Make sure you have results. Focus on results. The job application, if you have good results, it will come easy. You will copy and paste from your papers or proposals to your whatever. I think focus on that. Try to enjoy well being a postdoc while it lasts. But yeah, it's a job finding a job. But don't stress too much about it.
You can also negotiate. I did, and had a more open end. Because I don't like moving. It's not gotten better with age free. So yeah, you can try negotiating too. Actually there were a lot of things you could negotiate before I didn't realize, and I did on some, which is great, and I wish I knew about more. But
yeah.
Kind of touched on this, but when should you do a postdoc? How do you know?
I mean, I think it's similar to grad school. If you're feeling burnt out or you're just not ready, you should listen to yourself and your needs and take that time. The traditional path is you go like right after your PhD, like during the last little bit of your PhD, you're applying for a postdoc, and then you transition sort of from that PhD straight into that postdoc. That's the traditional route. But if, there are a number of reasons why you might take a break. It's very similar to like going between undergrad and grad school. All depends on just like we said, like really want what you really need, and think about what your life will be as a postdoc. You want that, like, are you ready for research, like less teaching, like think about the details, like the roles, like of what you're going to do in the next postdoc, and do you want to go that way, or maybe you want to go like, I don't know, to an industry position, try that, or some other path. A lot of examples here. So I think it really depends on you. The traditional way is the way it is, like we all know it. But the fact is that like we not the right path for them.
My advice would be to talk to people who are doing that job now. Like find some postdocs, whether it's in the group you're in now, or people that were research mentor, previously mentored who are currently in postdocs, that they can connect you and learn what their day-to-day is like, learn what the job is actually like. And then that might help you get a better sense of whether you think that that's the right path for you. Who here is familiar with the term informational interview? Have you heard that before? So this is literally just like you talk to somebody about their job because you want to know what their job is like. It's like a way to connect with someone and learn about what they do. But it's not like an interview. It's not a job interview. It's just like, I want to know what your day-to-day life is like and how you got there, what you did. I did these all the time in like my last year of grad school, just trying to figure out like what all these jobs that I'm seeing kind of pop up in my Indeed search, like what are those jobs actually like? This is a way for you to ask somebody in that position what that position is like. And so again, use those existing connections that you have to connect with other people who have those positions that you're looking at. Talk to them for like half an hour. It doesn't take a lot of time. Half an hour is enough. And use that to evaluate whether you think that's the right next step for you.
Okay, well, we got about a little less than 5 minutes. So what I wanted to do was sort of go down the panel, and if you had any last thoughts or advice you wanted to share with the students, that would be great. So maybe Melissa, we can start with you if that's okay. Or
Yeah, that's fine. Just come and talk to me one-on-one anytime. I do a lot of talking these weeks, and you're gonna see me over and over. But do come and ask me at the coffee if you can catch me. Yeah, come and talk to me one-on-one.
Yeah, likewise, feel free to stop me anywhere and chat. It's definitely helpful. It was helpful for me when I was getting into it. I also like coming to these things. I mean, there were at AAS, all these different things that I was going to that I had no idea what they were. I did think it was helpful.
Yeah, take advantage of this week surrounded by probably a lot of people that you don't get to interact with very much, but that we're all here for the same thing. We're all here to talk about Ruben and LSST. So if there's a name you recognize on a badge, but you haven't met before, just go up and introduce yourself. This is a great week to meet some new people, make new connections.
I'm going to double down on that. I challenge you to find somebody that you don't know while you're at this meeting. You go with a buddy, you can, if your advisor's here, you can rope them into introducing you. But I challenge you to like meet somebody new at this meeting. And if you want to talk more about like how long it takes to apply for postdocs when you are a postdoc, you can find me there.
I skip. Thanks. I come back.
I think one thing that I wish I would have had someone really get to me whenever I was really young was following your gut passion. Like, are you doing what you're doing because it's what you really want to do, or is it because of what you think you need to do, or what somebody else wants you to do? And don't waste any time. Just do what your heart tells you to do. Follow your gut, follow your passion, and then that means it's gonna be a lot of work doing whatever you need to do, but have fun while you're doing it too. Find a moment every day to smile, have fun, take breaks, and once you're done with your PhD or I never did a postdoc, but postdoc or whatever it is you do, there's always something else to do, right? Like, I mean, maybe you get lucky and you win the lottery, you can just go hang out on the beach somewhere. That's what you like. That'd be great. But you're always going to have to do something. So find the joy in it. You have to find something you're going to be happy, you're going to love to do, and try to enjoy life as much as you can.
For me, what I can say is based on my personal experience, I don't have statistics that I can use to promote that. Is the perception that is very hard to get a job seems, in my opinion, to be driven by the fact that we look at very traditional careers. Outside of that, it's very different. In the technical, if you go to AAS job register right now, there's probably 75% of the careers are not today. I'm gonna guess, but that's probably a good answer. So space telescope size needs to be 800 people. There's a whole bunch of things out there that are very different from academia. And the more you progress in your career, the more the situation reverses. Rather than having the problem of too many candidates, you have too few. It's hard to find people who will apply for certain jobs. And it's very common in experience. And most of these things come with research allocation. I'm a federal employee, and I have 20% of research allocation. So it's look really outside. Unless academia is your dream, I don't think it's my experience is your experience is going to be much better outside of that. My experience.
I would say the truth is that networking is really important. It was really hard for myself, like to go up to people and myself. I haven't met that for people. But I wanted to follow up on what Lee suggested. That I made it sometimes into some small tasks for myself. Okay, so in this conference, go say hello to 3 different people. And I told myself, okay, I do have this question. I wrote it down. So who should I ask this question from? And I found someone. Okay, I'm just gonna go ask this question. So I made a very simple, small task for myself, and I started to enjoy it. Like it was really hard in the beginning, but making it this way, was, like, it made me feel good that I accomplished something, and I just unconsciously started to repeating it. So, but it's like the truth is that it's really important, and what Lucas said that like most of the jobs that we get, they're through people that they know us and we know them. Are really important. And don't take it too hard on yourself. Like difficult decisions are for everyone to have something. Like we all face difficult decisions, difficult situations. So don't be afraid to get ask for help, to get support from people around you. People you know are your resources. So get help from them. Ask questions. Like, ask for support. It really helps.
Yeah, and Louis' energy made me blank out. I actually had something to say. Thank you. But actually, what I wanted to say is so much in line with what Dan was saying. If you like your job, you'll be tenfold more productive. It doesn't have to be like it's a job. It doesn't have to be that your job and your hobby have to be the same thing. You're lucky if it is, but it doesn't have to be. But I think hopefully many of you here have the privilege of choosing at the moment. So choose what you like and be okay that you're gonna change with time. What you like is gonna change with time, and that's okay. Because because the skills that you're developing now can be so easily transferable to a million other fields. So it's gonna be okay. I was fishing.
Well, thank you to the panel. Let's give them a round of applause. Tried to transcribe as much of the answers and questions that were asked. So we will post that, or I will post that to the webpage for this breakout session. So if it was so much information you forget it all, you can go back to that Google Doc and take a look. That should be up there sometime tonight. But thank you all for coming. Thank you again to the panel. I think it was great. Thanks.